Welcome to Thalir. This is a place called Bud. This is budding forth for a new life, and we are Capuchins working for the renewal of the society and the church.
This is part of the Solanas KC Holistic Welfare Center, Viluppuram in India. We give motivational trainings and empowerment for religious and lay leaders, formators and formees, teachers and students, families, parents and children. We also give counseling to the individuals and the communities and the families. We conduct retreats and monthly recollections. Above all, we give special focus on the poorest of the poor, the marginalized, the migrants, and the welfare of the rural women and children. Solanas KC Holistic Welfare Center. Contact the Director, Nithya, YFM Cap. Email totalexcellencenow@gmail.com. Dear brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, I am very happy to welcome one and all, east to west, north and south, all over the world, the English-speaking world of the religious, the formies and the formators joined together. We are around 800 to 1,000 people gathered here in this Zoom meeting now. We are going to listen to the special message by Fr.Jerry on the prophetic obedience to God's will, freedom to love and live for the gospel, and walking with the poorest and the least as on vow to be poor. And also we'll be listening to Father Wilson on the grace of community life. Father Jerry will be dealing on the three vows, and Father Wilson will be dealing with the community life. Welcome Father Jerry and Father Wilson. Welcome Father Jerry.
Thank you so much. Quite delighted again to stand before you to share some reflections on the second vow. Yesterday we saw the vow of obedience. Historically speaking, obedience was the first vow, as I said yesterday, from the 7th century. That does not mean from the 4th to 7th century they were disobedient, but they obeyed the call of the Lord, obeyed, as I said yesterday, the inner voice, and obeyed the demands of the values of the gospel in terms of justice or truth. But today we are going to the second one, and that is chastity. Again, historically, chastity was undertaken as part of the vowed life from 9th century. From 4th century to 9th century, for 500 years. And they did not take the vow of chastity, but they were chaste. They were pure. And they were what they call innocent. Children of God for the sake of mission of God, going by the values of the gospel of Christ Jesus. And accordingly today we are going to focus our attention for the coming about 1 hour on the second vow, chastity. Very warm welcome. I could see already there are about 443 participants have registered, coming from 30 plus countries. And when I say 442, I'm told by Father Nithya, there are a number of groups of what got registered their name. The number may be 1, but there may be many, 3, 5, 8, 20, and whatnot. And as per some rough calculation of Father Nithya, there may be around 800 to 850. About 850 people may be participating. And today I know it's a very, very welcome topic, chastity. So welcome to a life of chastity. And I like to begin my reflections with a reference. That particular young fellow in his mid-20s was the mid-year of his formation, just about 5 years before his ordination. He has completed about 6 years. Another 5 to go. Somewhere in the year of his formation, midpoint of his formation. and he was doing his philosophy, and he has to complete it before he goes for his theology, eventually to get ordained as a consecrated person. He's a vowed man and vowed young man. A relative of his had a program at home, and this particular young fellow got a couple of days permission, and he went over and he participated in that particular celebration, and without going in the details, but he was fascinated. He was dazzled. He himself uses this word. He got dazzled. D-I-Z-Z-L-E-D. Dazzled. Fascinated by a young girl. So much. Was simply attracted toward that girl. And he noticed something, somewhere chemistry is working in his personality. Very interestingly, if not incidentally, the girl never ever, I repeat, the girl never ever looked at this young fellow. He was handsome, but the point is the girl never ever looked at him. But this particular young fellow, all the time, and those days of 2 days when he stayed at his uncle's relative's house, and he was simply focusing his attention on that girl, highly taken up, totally attracted, and dazzled and fascinated. 2 days got over. He had to get back to his seminary formation house. He got back. Now I have to quote him exactly as he himself narrated it. He said, after coming back, he could not pray. And even in the chapel, when a hymn book, they announced page number 242. He was taking 342. He was not getting the number exactly. He was so dazzled, and he got so attracted to that girl. As I said, chemistry was working that much. He was not getting his faculties fully functioning. He went over to the refectory. That's what he said. I went to the refectory. I saw bread, cheese, butter, jam, whatnot. But nothing appealed to me. I could see the girl's face here and there. All over the refectory and over the plate of mine. I did not see the slices of bread. I saw that face of that girl. I went to the classroom and the professor was teaching. But I noticed my books are falling from my hands. And I am not concentrating. Went on for 2-3 days. Then got increased in course of time. And then he himself says, about 10 days or so, then it occurred to him that he has to make a decision, for which he need to go through a discernment. Whether to stand by the call of God and then to stay back in the seminary and go through the years of formation, eventually to get ordained, and as a consecrated religious person, to live up that chastity for the sake of God's mission. And or leave the seminary, leave the formation house, nothing wrong, get over to the girl and negotiate a dialogue and date with the girl. In course of time, go for another sacrament, and that is holy matrimony. So you have two things: holy ordination, holy orders, as a consecrated religious person. The other side, another choice, another option, matrimony with the girl. Now let me end this episode, because today also I've got 7 select dimensions of chastity. Yesterday I gave 7 highlights of obedience and prophetic obedience to God's will. And today I've got 7 today. 7 select dimensions of chastity. Freedom to live for gospel. Freedom or free to live for gospel. And again I have got 7, but I have to end the episode. This particular young fellow in his mid-20s, as he was going through his studies of philosophy, and then he said, after about 10 days, I was in a dilemma. I have to make my discernment and make a decision and then proceed or leave and then get married to the girl and lead a happy wedded life. He went through the discernment. quite facilitated by his spiritual counselor. And the counselor was quite compassionate and considerate. And accordingly, the spiritual counselor seemed to have told him, you can take any decision. Both are sacraments. Nothing wrong. But you stand by the gospel. You have the freedom. You have the freedom. You have the freedom to be a priest, to be a consecrated person. Or you have the freedom to get married. Freedom is yours. God has given the freedom. Make a choice. And the spiritual counselor helped him in terms of discernment to end the note. Towards the end of that discernment, he came to a solemn and solid decision that he would remain in the seminary, go through the years of formation with certain profound self-image, with certain pure self-discipline, and with certain prophetic self-direction of life, and apply for ordination and lead a consecrated life. I tell you, this happened solidly about 55 years ago. 55 years ago. And you possibly know the person. He is the one who is now occupying the chair of Peter, none other than Pope Francis. I tell you, in the year 2013, in the month of July, on the 25th of that month, July 2013, he was to attend the World Youth Day in Brazil. And he had gone over there. And he saw the young boys and girls. Youngsters come from all over. And the teenagers have come all over. And millions were gathered over there. And he saw them, they were hugging and loving and kissing. And at that time, he also shared his own love story. We rarely come across a pope of this particular caliber and character, and who can take the courage and to share his own love story. Today is this year is around 83 and touching 84, born in the year 1936. But when he went through, it was 1960, 61. And that's solid about, as I said, about 60, 55, 60 years ago. But still remembers that particular event. He says he made a decision and he has now come to be the vicar of Christ. We should applaud the man who took courage even to share under conviction. My dear brothers and sisters, and you are all young ones, and you are all junior ones, as I am now talking to you, novices, aspirants, postulants, juniors, and post novices, I am inviting you to the 7 select dimension of chastity. And with this particular backdrop, and with this particular love story that narrated by Pope Francis himself, you need to now take courage to accept yourself as a human personality, as a sexual personality, but still called by God a vocation to be a celibate personality. We are humans and we are also sexuals. We are not non-sexuals. We are not asexuals. Non-sexual, they don't have the sexuality as part and parcel of their being. Asexual, they even take a stand against sexuality. But I call upon you, upcoming younger generation of your respective congregation, and kindly accept the very sexuality as part of your personality, a gift from God. If Pope Francis can openly talk about it, and you also need to be open to yourself, and open to your formators, and open to the wider society about your own depth personality, which includes the sexual personality, which is part and parcel of human personality of yours, of mine. First dimension. I said 7 dimensions today. I've already touched upon the first one, but I want to elaborate and end that one. Taking the vow of chastity and living a life of chastity is not going to be soft and smooth. It's not going to be sweet at all. Because we are going against the currents. We are going against the flow. And we are going against our own sexual urges, sexual abilities, sexual inclinations, and sexual orientations, if not sexual temptations. All these sexual urges and sexual orientations or sexual inclinations or sexual temptations, all are nothing but part of God's gift as He created each one of us in His image. If that's the case, we need to thank God. That's the first point. A positive note. Don't run away from your sexual life. Don't run away. Don't dismiss the sexuality of your personality. Accept it as a part and parcel of your being. And much more, thank God of creation that He has created you. As I need to thank God for creating me as a full-fledged human person. I put it negatively and get the point. What is that one? Namely, if something, the sexual abilities are missing, urges are missing, and sexual orientations and inclinations are missing, and that way even sexual temptations are missing, something wrong. Something wrong. Because we should be natural and we should be normal. We should be human. So when we want to be normal, when we want to be natural, when we want to be human, we cannot and should not. And we cannot, could not, should not, and we would not deny the sexuality of one's own personality, for we need to be grateful to God of creation. Chapter number 1, book of Genesis, verses 26 and 27, it says at the peak of creation, God created humans, male and female, each one and every one is masterpiece in His image. There is bits and pieces of God in each one of us, and we need to celebrate the fullness of our human being. However, in the very first dimension, however, I need to conclude this one with that particular statement. What is that one? To live a life of chastity will be a sort of martyrdom. It's normal, it's natural, it's human, but still to take the vow of chastity is not going to be a joke. It's not going to be something simple and something soft and sweet, and certainly will be demanding and challenging. And we need to ask for the grace of God and the blessing of God, that as a human person we will grow in maturity in every respect. Physiologically mature person, psychologically mature person, emotionally mature person, intellectually mature person, sexually mature person, and that way humanly an integrated mature person. It's a martyrdom, is something going against the currents, but while thanking God, we ask for the blessing of God, that as we have been created in His image and with His power, and we need to grow in our maturity in terms of all this. I repeat, physiological, body-wise, our sexual organs and other organs of the body should be functioning well. And second one is psychological, and we need to have certain feelings, and it will contribute to our relationship with others in a meaningful and beautiful way. And the third one is emotional, how we show the what we call feelings, how we show our attitudes, how we really extend our approaches. All these are part and parcel of that particular emotional maturity. Next one is intellectual. Our formation may give us loads of information, but we need to acquire and procure not only just knowledge, but grow in wisdom, intellectual maturity. And the next one is sexual maturity. And we need to be adults, and we should not be kids, and we need to really thank God for our sexuality. At the same time, ask for God the grace of living a chaste life, which we are chosen freely to live for gospel, the gospel mission. All put together, we grow in our integrated human maturity. First dimension is over. I move on to the second one. You will get the what we call I have prepared already. I prepared already, and you will certainly will get this A4 paper in course of time sent by Father Nithya through WhatsApp after the session. And they will see that I have highlighted everything in terms of the 7 select dimensions. There are many dimensions, but this morning I sat for a couple of hours, had some meditation, reflection and preparation, and so that I can select about 7 select dimensions. I go to the second dimension. Interesting one. What is that one? You remember yesterday when I explained obedience, I said the verb of obedience is linked to, attached to the value of gospel in terms of truth or justice. Matthew, Mark, Luke will say justice. The synoptic evangelists, they will talk in the common language, their language, justice. Blessed are those who suffer for justice. Whereas John will use the word truth. And we know justice and truth are one and the same. And so, but the church has accepted the term justice. It is there. Yesterday I explained to you the first word, that is justice, is linked to the first value of the gospel, that is justice or truth. The second one, that is chastity, that we are talking about today, is linked to the second value of the gospel. What is that? Freedom. Everyone is made and manufactured in freedom by God. God has employed his own freedom in order to create us with total freedom. So much so, in the letter to Romans, St. Paul would say, God has given the freedom that we could even commit sin. Imagine. If God has not given freedom, there is no possibility, there is no feasibility, there is no opportunity to commit sin. But we will not be humans. Humans are humans, created in freedom, with freedom. In freedom, with freedom, to live a life of freedom. And accordingly, the second word, chastity, is linked with the second value of gospel, namely freedom, that is given to each and every one of us. How do you understand that one? Now look at the interesting information. You and I have got freedom till the end of our lives for anything and everything which we need to arrive at with certain sense of responsibility, with certain spirit of discernment, with a certain sense of dedication. Very important sentences. Very important. So the freedom is not to do whatever we want. No, with a spark of responsibility. That's called responsible freedom. We should make use of our freedom to do what and do what not. And we should know. As I said yesterday, we need to have the freedom to say yes when you have to say yes. And we need to have the courage and conviction to say no when you have to say no. But this is not only in terms of matters, issues, problems, concerns, in terms of justice or truth. Now the second value is, that is freedom, is for the verb of chastity. That means it applies to me now, applies to you, all my listeners. I see the participants have gone up to 480 today. And there will be also others who will be part of this participant groups. I am not speaking to you. That means each and every one of us. Whether we are 850 or more, 900, number does not matter. But I am now making an invitation to each and every one of you. Each and every one of you. As I am now talking to you, I am also talking to myself. I need to invite myself. As you have to invite yourself individually, personally, individually and personally. What? Whether you want to make use of freedom to be a religious and take the vow of chastity, or you want to make use of your freedom, personal freedom, individual freedom to get married, nothing wrong. sacrament. Or you want to make use of your freedom and to lead a single life. No consecrated, vowed life of chastity. No married life, the marital promise covenant with one's partner. Neither this nor that, but instead to lead a single life. Your freedom. Next one for boys and those who belong to male gender. What is that one? It is your freedom to be a priest or to be a brother in your own respective congregations. And we also have got, possibly some of our participants here may belong to, for example, Montfort brothers, or what we call Jesuit brothers, or Franciscan brothers, or Patrician brothers. And there are some brothers congregations. Freedom, freedom, freedom. If you want to even postpone to make your decision, either one way or other, again freedom. Don't deny the freedom to yourself. I repeat, don't deny freedom to yourself. Put it another way. Give freedom to yourself so that you will go through the process of discernment and take a decision among many options that are available, and each and every option is indeed good. To be a vowed person as a chaste of chastity, good. And to be a priest, good. To be a brother, good. And to be a sister, good. Or to be a married person, again good. And want to be a what we call a single person, male or female, bachelor or spinster, good, good, good. Everything is good. But there comes the discernment. And the discernment should be made in freedom. In freedom. So before you apply for your vows, kindly sit with yourself. And then journey into yourself. And go to the court of your own conscience. And then question yourself in all freedom. And which is your choice. And that's your freedom. Don't give up your freedom. Your formators may or may not say, once we enter into postulancy, aspirancy, or novitiate, we think we are meant only for vowed life. Not at all. Not at all. It is in my first point is very important. What is that one? God has made us sexual, and we should not deny it. And if you think sexually through the marriage, the sacrament of marriage, you could be all the more fruitful, meaningful, beautiful for God's mission, and you will serve much, much better as a married person, bringing up a family. Why not? Why not? Why not? Everything's good. You have freedom. No authority on earth. No authority on earth can take away the freedom from you. No authority or majority on earth can take the freedom from me. I am not created to be a slave. I am created to be a servant for society. But I do have freedom. I repeat, all throughout my life. And especially on the eve of my application for my ordination, or on the eve of application for my profession, I need to really make good use of, best use of freedom. And that's the second point. The chastity, the vow of chastity is born out of the value of freedom. Somebody said like this, I'm not a born eunuch. Why? Eunuchs could not get married. I am not a made eunuch. Why? They have lost the faculty of sexuality, and they have lost the ability, and they could not get married. Born eunuch should not get married. Made eunuch, they could not get married. But that particular gentleman said, I'm not a born eunuch, not a made eunuch. I am a freely volunteered eunuch for God's kingdom, God's mission. You know the person. You know the person. He was a single man. Even though he crossed the age of 30 and a very handsome fellow. Now don't look at me and say I am handsome, not at all. I'm talking about another handsome fellow who lived 2000 years ago. I know you did not live at that time. And you should know, I also did not live at that time. But I know as a Jew, he would have been really handsome, tall, nice, slim, trim. And then he would have been handsome. And number of women and girls would have come around him. Not only Mary Magdalene and others. Others also would have come around. Mary, Martha, Bethany also would have come around him. But he had his own freedom. No, I am a freely volunteered eunuch for God's mission. Where did he say so? Matthew's Gospel, chapter 19, verse number 12. Then you go back after the session for your next prayer, personal prayer. You can even focus on this one. Verse number 12, chapter number 19, Gospel according to Saint Matthew. Said, and the saying comes from the lips and from the heart of that particular gentleman called Jesus of Nazareth. That takes me to the third point. The third point is a very interesting one. What is that one? I said that our chastity is only from the 9th century. But that is different from other vow, other promise that is called celibacy. Many a time we will mix up celibacy and chastity. As per canon laws, there's a distinction. Diocesan clergy, they take a life of celibacy. A religious consecrated person, they take a vow of chastity. There's a distinction. Both start with C and both end with Y. But still, there's a difference. Celibacy for the diocesan clergy and chastity for the consecrated religious people, men and women. Now look at another one. Celibacy is a condition in order to become a priest in the Catholic Church. And that came only from the 4th Lateran Council. That is only from the 12th century. Historically speaking, diocesan clergy, priests, and even bishops, archbishops, cardinals, and much more, even popes were married till 12th century. Even the first pope, Peter himself was a married person. Mark's Gospel chapter 1 would say, Jesus went to the mother-in-law of Simon Peter's home. He went to the house of Simon Peter's mother-in-law. And now coming to that one. But after the fourth Lateran Council, and that without going into the details, that is from the 12th century, celibacy was made as a condition for the priestly ordination. And that is something very interesting information. Some of your countries or dioceses might have. In order to be deacon, one could be single, celibate, one could be even married. Married deacons are available even in India. Last year I had been to Bombay to give a special program to the married deacons of the Archdiocese of Mumbai, that is Bombay. It has got about 17, 18 married deacons, and they cannot become priests because priestly ordination condition, and you need to be unmarried. In case married, at least the partner should have departed and the children could have been settled. Then you can become a priest. Permitted. But you cannot bring your partner when you apply for your ordination. And whereas, it's because it's a condition from, as I said, from 12th century. I told you, even prior to that one, or that what you call it, even bishops and others, including popes, were married, and sometimes even sons of the popes, they become popes. History. They cannot deny the history. Whereas, after the 12th century, and the celibacy has come as a condition for the diocesan clergy. A Roman Father Nithya at the outset also referred to the sexual scandals that are taking place. the present Pope Francis has even gone on record to say, I am a religious, I am a Jesuit. I have taken the vow of chastity. Then I completed my novitiate. In course of time, I also made my final profession as a Jesuit priest. I have taken the vow of chastity that I accepted in my freedom. Whereas the diocesan clergy are being conditioned by the life of celibacy. And he has gone on record to say the church should even be ready to and come forward to revisit the condition of celibacy for the diocesan clergy, and especially in order to control the sexual abuses that are taking place among them. And he said we cannot find fault with them. And at that particular time, 12th century, and we needed what we call celibacy for the sake of ordination as a condition. Times are changing. Now, in that way, don't mix up celibacy. Celibacy is something to do with ordination, and it's a condition. Whereas the chastity for a religious men and women, nothing to do with the ordination. There are 900,000 of what we call it consecrated women. They are not going to get ordained, but they are taken in their freedom the vow of chastity. And what does mean the chastity? I'm going to put it in a very straight way. And that takes me to the next one, fourth highlight, other dimension. Fourth one, what does it mean? Vow of chastity. Certainly your formators were animators, and your directresses are directors, and your spiritual counselors would have told you. But I know what they told me. Possibly, many of you also would have heard the same from your formators and spiritual counselors. What is that one? Obedience means yes, yes, yes. Chastity means no, no, no. I say a very simple and straight definition. Whereas yesterday I said obedience based on truth and justice can also involve saying no when there is untruth. So also today, chastity has to be defined in a very, very substantial way, in a very, very biblical way, theological way, and very, very human way, and practical way, and pragmatic way. What does it mean? As obedience, as I explained yesterday to you, refers to both to yes and no. So also that the vow of chastity has to be also defined in terms of yes and no. It's not simple no. At the same time, not simple yes. Yes and no. It's a big topic, but let me now put it very, very briefly and succinctly and shortly. When we say they are human persons, there are three levels of sexuality. Three levels. And the first level is nothing but what they use the word primary sexuality. The basic sexuality. Or the fundamental foundational sexuality. That depends on the physiological sexuality, anatomical sexuality. There are words are different, but that's the first level. What does it mean? Simple. I'm a man. That's my primary sexuality. And those who are listening to me, if you belong to another gender, let's say you're female, that means your primary sexuality is femininity. Whereas a primary sexuality for me is masculinity. And then for you, you are girls and your boys. I am man and others are women. And that's a primary. And what does it mean? I go through my physiological, anatomical maturity, come of age, attain puberty, go through my teenage, when my sexual reproductive system starts developing. I don't know whether I can say it here, but there's nothing like saying it very plainly to you. What does it mean? God, when He created us, when we come out of the womb of our mother at the time of delivery, and God has allowed all the systems to function right from the start, except one system, digestive system functions immediately, and blood system functions immediately, and cognitive nervous system, brain functions immediately, etc., etc., etc. But one system is suspended. Though there are sexual organs, though there are reproductive system is within oneself, but God has suspended it. Why? Ask God. Ask God. God has suspended the reproductive system. Until when? Till we reach a age, maybe 8 or 9 or 10 or 11, before we enter into teenage, and we say we attain puberty, maturity, come of age, at that time the reproductive system in each and every one of us starts functioning. And hormones are up. And as far as the girls are concerned, the monthly period starts. The manufacturing of the egg ovum starts. As far as the boys are concerned, the sperm production starts. And that all come under primary sexuality. We cannot deny it. We may take the vow of chastity, but we have to say yes to our basic primary sexuality. So it's not simply saying no to sexuality when we take the vow of chastity. By the way, you should be certainly knowing what I'm going to say. But since you are coming from various countries and continents and cultures and civilizations, let me now put it very, very plainly. Taking the vow of chastity is not going to liberate and free us from the sexual reproductive system's functioning. Monthly period will take place, and sperm production for boys and men will happen, and penis get erected, and vagina will open up. Nothing wrong. We need to know reproductive system and our sexual organs and sexual hormones, etc., etc., etc. Why? We need to say yes. Yes, I do. And you also have. And say yes. Number one. Number two is affective sexuality. In the 3 levels of sexuality, second is called affective sexuality. That is, after the functioning of the reproductive system, as my sexuality is now coming up, I know consciously, if not subconsciously, if not unconsciously, or all put together, I'm drawn toward the other gender. Earlier we used the word opposite sex. Today the sexologists, and they say they should not use the word opposite sex. They are complementary sex or the other sex. And we need to respect and recognize the beauty of the other sex. As we recognize them, there is certain attraction, there is certain affinity, and there is certain what we call chemistry. As referred to Pope Francis, he openly confesses, namely that he had that chemistry, and he was simply fascinated. And he was at the time 24, 25, and that did take place in his being. And we also should accept such a way affective sexuality. Why? Let me now add the point immediately. This very important point. In case you want further clarification, I'll be at your service at the end of my presentation. What is that one? If you say, no, Jerry, my name is Jerry. No, Jerry, I have got a primary sexuality and my sexuality is okay, intact, but I got a lot of self-control and self-whatnot. And whereas the second one, affective sexuality, I don't have it. I'm not attracted to others. My hormones are there, but they are not really making me feel coming intimate or coming close to other sex, the complementary sex. Now look at the sentence that I'm going to say. It is rather debatable, at the same time acceptable if you really ponder over. What is that one? In case you do not have that affective sexuality, you don't feel attracted to the other sex. Shall I end the sentence? You don't need to take the vow of chastity. And you don't need to really take the vow of chastity because you have nothing to offer, nothing to sacrifice, and nothing to make use of your freedom to come to a discernment, decision, and direction and dedication of your life. You are man, but nothing more. And you are primarily, fundamentally a woman, nothing more. But affective sexuality, we need to say yes. And then proceed to the third level. What is that one? And that is called, the third one is called genital sexuality. Sex, intercourse. We have to talk very plainly. Then only they will really cherish the profound meaning and the prophetic demand and the positive understanding of the vow of chastity. Though chastity is not a negative terminology and going against sexuality, and that is called asexuality. So I said earlier, we are not asexual, that means against sexuality, non-sexual, denying sexuality, but we are sexual. But still we know to what we say yes, to what we say no. First level, primary sexuality, we say yes. And second one, affective sexuality, we still say yes. And the third, genital sexuality, which will result in procreation, which will result in conception, which will result in production of human resources, and they may participating in a plan of God of creation, and that is genital. That is meant only for the sacrament of matrimony. There's also sacrament. The church blesses it as one of the 7 sacraments, at par with what we call holy orders, at a par with consecrated religious life. And we are called to be holy, either this way, that way. But when we choose this way, you want to be a priest, you want to be a religious nun and sister, you want to be a religious brother, we consciously, in freedom, we say no to the third level, that is genital sexuality. End the point. What is the way? That means they are sexually able, and thereby we like to give that particular urges and the energy, and that is typically sexual energy, all for God's mission. They uplift the energy. They transcend that energy. They go beyond the sexual energy for the sake of missiological energy, for the sake of doing all the more for God's kingdom. And that's the definition of chastity. I define chastity saying yes to primary sexuality and also affective sexuality, and at the same time saying no to genital sexuality. I know that I am not talking to you more than I have prepared, but Spirit has inspired me to speak very plainly to you, because otherwise I should not be just giving a sugar-coated explanation, a soft description, a smooth demand of the vow of chastity. But as a very title today has said it, chastity taken in freedom to live for the gospel value, gospel mission, and thereby follow the path of the single man, the chaste man, and the pure man, Jesus, who was not a born eunuch, made eunuch, but freely volunteer eunuch for God's kingdom. Verse number 12, chapter 19, Gospel according to St. Matthew. When I refer to Jesus, and that is certainly he was a man, but I also refer to a girl, and a woman, none other than Mary of Nazareth. And the Matthew's Gospel says, and Mary was betrothed to Joseph. That means she also was looking forward to a married life with Joseph. That means she also was a matured girl and ready for matrimony and looking forward to living with Joseph. But we read it in Luke's Gospel, chapter 1, verses 26 onward to 38. Namely, that annunciation was rather different. Eventually, Mary accepted what we call saying no in all her freedom to the genital sexuality with Joseph. with Joseph. She would also look forward to as a betrothed woman and girl. Of that young age, in her teen age, certainly should have been looking forward to. But God intervened and selected that particular poor girl, simple girl from the remote village of Nazareth. And that has helped her to accept the annunciation. And though she took some time, how can that be? But still in freedom, she said, say, I have accepted. I'm ready to accept the proposal to live with Joseph, but get conceived through the power of the Holy Spirit. And then bring forth a holy family, and where Jesus will become a person who will give himself as a single man, unmarried man, to give, he will give his life so that others may have life and life in abundance. John's Gospel, chapter 10, verse number 10. I repeat, Jesus himself says, I come to give life and life in abundance, for which he gave life, his very life. We have finished fourth dimension. I am moving to the fifth one. And fifth one is again something very, very special. And I suppose, I hope, I wish, I pray that you are traveling with me, because this is a very sensitive topic and very, we should not handle it in a very spiritualized manner. I wanted to handle the chastity very, very pragmatic and personal and purposeful and proactive and positive manner. But that takes me to the fifth dimension. And what is that one? Being a chaste person. That means we are accepting a life of loneliness. Loneliness. Life is made up of two sides. On one side, intimacy. Other side, loneliness. Even married people will have both of them. And for example, your mother, my mother, would have been intimate with their husbands, respective husbands. My mother would have been really intimate, physically, sexually intimate with my father, because of which I have come to be the fruit of her womb. As we say in the prayer, blessed are you the woman among all women, and blessed also the fruit of her womb, applies to each and every one of us. So we have been mothered and fathered by our parents, and they had intimacy. For them, the priority is intimacy, because they accepted the challenge and the challenge of the sacrament of matrimony. Whereas they also would have had certain loneliness. They have to be themselves, and they need to have their own self-dignity and self-esteem and self-dedication and self-discipline. They cannot be intimate with anybody and everybody once they get married. So the loneliness would have affected them on one another. But intimacy, the priority for those who accepted the sacrament of matrimony in all their freedom. Whereas for you and for me, as a consecrated person, we cannot deny the intimacy that we long for. Long for. We cannot deny. But at the same time, our prayer is the other side. We are taking a risk of life. Risk, R-I-S-K, risk of life. And we have promised to the Lord and pledged to ourselves for the sake of God's mission in all our freedom. I repeat the word freedom. And to live single, though we may be also intimately drawn to the other sex. But priority matters a lot. As I said more than once, we may have sexual urges and inclinations, sexual inclinations, and sexual orientations, and sexual temptations, and sexual energies, but all of them are being transcended for the sake of God's mission, as Jesus was and Mary was. And they are showing us the way, and we follow their footpath, and they follow their footprints, all for God's mission. So it's a risk, and we need to be aware of it. Shall I put it rather sharply before I go to the next one, the sixth dimension? I'm ending the fifth one with a straight sentence, because I know you're all juniors, novices, aspirants and postulants, and you're all in your formation at one or the other stage, and your communities of formees. Certainly your formators will be happy to help you if you come forward to say openly that you feel more and more drawn toward intimacy. Nothing wrong. Put it straightly. If your conscience says that you cannot live alone, the loneliness is not cup of your tea, and you need a partner, and you cannot sleep alone in your bed, and you cannot live in your single room alone, and the loneliness is a risk. And if you feel so strongly, nothing wrong. Make yourself a freedom, and then see that you go through the process of discernment. Why I'm getting somebody? Better to be a good Christian outside, a good committed married person outside, rather than a scandalous person inside of the consecrated life and in the priestly life. Who said that one? Pope Francis. He has got certain straight statements. It's also called a straight statements. I repeat, to be lonely is a call, but it's a risk. It's a martyrdom. But in the court of one's own conscience, you need to be true to yourself. You need to be honest to yourself. And you need to be sincere to yourself. As I said yesterday, transparency matters a lot. And if you find you cannot be alone, I tell you, I have what you call, put my services to be at the service of some people in formation. In the process, 1/3 of them stayed back when they felt so. They stayed back. In the course of them, they saw, and all their freedom, they said, though I am feeling so attracted, but still I stayed back, like Pope Francis. But I also come across, and those are in formation, whether they are boys or girls, I help them when they come out very openly that they cannot live without a partner. At the time, even to them I said, Catholic Church has a magnanimity to promulgate and practice the life of matrimony as one of the 7 sacraments. What I'm going to say may be a little shocking, but I have to put it if you do not know it. Better to know it. Why? Catholic Church has not made the religious life a sacrament. Now check your list of 7 sacraments. Marriage is a sacrament. Priestly ordination is a sacrament, but not consecrated religious life. And you and I have what we call in freedom, we have chosen that one. And especially the girls who are listening to me, and the girl formies who are listening to me, or the formators who belong to the other sex, who are women folk. I have to really salute and appreciate, because I'm also a priest, I got sacrament. I'm also a religious, non-sacrament. Whereas you, women folk and girls, and those who are in your formation houses and formation period and years of your formation, and I have to appreciate, you have said no to a sacrament called matrimony, but you have said yes to a non-sacrament called consecrated religious life, which calls you to take a decision in freedom to go by a life of chastity. Good. Now it takes me to the sixth dimension. Sixth dimension. In order to take that decision, to go for a vowed life and chaste life, you need to also have certain checkpoints. It's a very, very practical points. And a certain Joe Curry, now dead and gone, an American Jesuit, worked in India for 30 years. Then I was a scholastic. Then I was a young man. And he gave me this particular details in some depth. But at the time, it helped. From that time onward, And those particular details or checkpoints helped me, though he gave many, but I have chosen only 3 checkpoints to place before you. Because another within 2-3 minutes, I have to close the shop, end my session, so that we will have about 15 minutes solid for the clarification. Then afterwards, we go for a vote of thanks and conclude with a prayer. At 7:30, we officially close. Then after 7:30 is a bonus time. Bonus. And yesterday I noticed about 150 or so stayed and made use of the bonus time. And Father Nitya said it went on till 8:15, something like that. Even solid 45 minutes. Bonus time. But our time will get over by 7:30 as per our schedule. Accordingly, I am going to put the checkpoints, 3 points straight away with a brief explanation. First one is, you have to check whether there is an element of possessiveness. You had a boyfriend, girlfriend. We never times to say boyfriend, girlfriend is a bad word. And they are asked to go for confession. Whereas now we are living in a modernized world. The words are used. Possibly before you joined the novitiate, you had a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Or somebody would have even written what we call it, love letters to you. To somebody who would have said, I love you. Nothing wrong. Now we have come to the novitiate formation house. Now we are getting prepared if not taking the vow of chastity. Now still you have to check whether element of possessiveness. That means you feel that girl is only for you. You feel that boy is only for you. Or you feel that young sister is for you. You feel that young priest is for you. Possessive. And you want to even say, don't talk to others. Even when you want to come to convent, you talk to me. I am for you, you are for me. And that is called possessiveness. The possessiveness can take us to the second checkpoint. What is that one? Obsessiveness. I don't need to elaborate. I get back to the original example that I narrated episode of Pope Francis. He was obsessed with that girl. He went to the chapel. He did not pray. Went to the refectory. He did not eat. Went to the classroom. He did not listen to the lectures and lessons. He was obsessed. He saw the girl anywhere and everywhere. All over. And there was no prayer book. Only the girl book. And there's no bread or jam or butter or cheese. Only the face of girl all over. Obsessed. Possessiveness and obsessiveness can take you to the third one, that is extreme one, exclusiveness. That means you exclude all others. And you think you are created only for him and you have to live with him, but still you want to take the vow of chastity, you have to check your freedom. And as Father Nitya said it at the outset, today media is exposing the sexual abuses by priests and religions. They should not add to the number. Checkpoints. Possessiveness, 1. Obsessiveness, number 2. And exclusiveness is number 3. That means nobody matters. Even God does not matter. Jesus made it all dismissed, sidelined, marginalized. And you think only, you have to phone up every minute and ask, where are you? How are you? And you cannot go to sleep without having a chat, etc. Exclusiveness. Good. I'm ending the session with the 7th dimension. As I did yesterday, a modern version, what could be chastity? Modern version of this vow of chastity. I applied my mind. I'm going to give you only 2. Though I thought of many, but I'm going to give you 2. It is up to you to think further. And the chastity could be understood positively as creativity. Instead of creating a new family by our sexuality, but by the through of chastity, we want to create a new humanity, creativity. We would have brought forth children for our own kitten, for our own circle. Now we are bringing forth parenting, fathering, mothering, children of God, creativity, a new society that will be more human, more just, and more true and more free and more loving and more lovable. Creativity. Second one is another C, cardiality. Cardiality. Heart. My heart is not for a man. My heart is not just for a woman. My heart is for one and all, especially the poorest, the least, the last. And that's where tomorrow it will come, the vow of poverty. But cardiality, that does not mean by taking the vow of chastity, we dismiss our heart. Our hearts are still burning, and the burning for the least and the last in terms of cardiality. Chastity could be interpreted, could be understood, could be experienced, and could be exhibited. Could be exhibited in terms of creativity and cardiality. My dear friends, as you are listening to me, I end my presentation, wishing all the best in this life of positive chastity, freedom in terms of living totally, comprehensively for the mission of the gospel of God of Jesus. Thank you so much.